Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our STACS Showcase as part of the SFF and Switch Week. Thank you, everyone, for joining. We have a very impactful session lined up today around the topic of ESG financing with the use of DLT. And we have a fully live demo session besides the sharing of interesting perspectives. So for today's session, we are indeed honored to have leaders from the financial industry joining us. It looks like it's going to be a very powerful session, so I'm really looking forward to it. So firstly, let me invite our guest speakers who will make a quick self-introduction of themselves. First, we have Ms. Chen Xiuqi, Securities Market and Technology Advocacy, APAC, Securities Services, Deutsche Bank. Xiuqi.
Thanks, Ben. So just to give everyone a brief introduction of myself, I'm part of Deutsche Bank's Securities Market and Technology Advocacy team, looking at APAC regulatory, digital and market changes and what this means for our clients and businesses. So with over 12 years of experience in post-trade and security services space, some pain points that we observe are information exchange inefficiencies, as well as paper-based processes. So today I'm very excited that we are collaborating with STACS to share about the exploration of use cases and to share what the benefits of DLT can bring to the industry. Thanks, back to you, Ben.
Thanks, Xiuqi. Next up, we have Mr. Mayor Tung, APAC Chief of Staff, UBS. Mayor.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. So hi, everyone. So my name is Mayor from UBS. And I think for us, similar to what Xiuqi mentioned, when we look at sustainable investing, impact investing, I think one of the challenges was to really look at how can we improve the processes to sort of address the challenges today, such as greenwashing, the fact that use of proceeds may be tough to track, etc. So I think likewise we are very, very pleased to collaborate with hashtags together with the respective banks in exploring how to utilize DLT and blockchain specifically to possibly improve efficiencies across this process and also minimize these challenges. Back to you, Ben.
Thank you, Mayor. And we have Mr. Ramon Cervantes, Product Manager, Blockchain and Investments, FinTech Group, Union Bank of the Philippines. Ram?
Hey, Ben, and hi, good afternoon, everybody. So I'm Ram. I'm a FinTech Product Manager under the Blockchain Center of Excellence of Union Bank of the Philippines. We are trying to find out what are the different ways that we can utilize blockchain technology, distributed ledger technology, utilize that in various ways. And for me, my specialization right now is the capital markets, because before I actually became a FinTech product manager, I spent years as an equities portfolio manager. So this is very interesting for me to try to understand what can we try to integrate into the system. Are there ways that we can, as mentioned by Mayor, improve the ways that we're looking at things to prevent greenwashing, to find out what are the ways that we can utilize this technology better.
Thanks, Ram. So thank you to all three of our guest speakers for joining the session today. So we are going to talk more about how, building upon what they have just shared, how we are able to use technology to be able to support and even enforce, the various aspects of ESG investing and green financing. So of course, at STACS, we have always been echoing this vision of how we can use technology to transform the financial industry. And we have been very, very honored and very, I would say, humbled by the presence of the three banks here, the working teams from Deutsche Bank, UBS, and Union Bank, whereby we have collaborated together, to have a lot of input and ideas on how we can use the technology in a better way. So for the last 2 months, the STACS team with Xiuqi, Mayor, Ram, and their respective Deutsche, UBS, and Union Bank teams, we have multiple discussions, and we will be able to share some of these findings today, firstly. And secondly, we will also be showcasing some of the live platform technology that we have already produced in this area of using the DLT for green financing. So without further ado, I will jump right in. Just introduction of myself too. My name is Ben. I'm the Managing Director of STACS. So what do we believe in? Firstly, we believe that asset tokenization or DLT, is a very useful technology where we are able to program business logic into a smart contract. So this business logic includes things like business parameters, okay, includes for example, the various aspects of green bonds and frameworks into the smart contract itself, so as to represent the ownership rights of a certain asset and also allow it to take on its digitalization life, where it is now able to be digital from the start. Therefore, it will be executing certain actions based on certain conditions. So what are the benefits here? Firstly, thanks to that smart contract and automation, we are now able to automate funds and securities movements, which will provide a lot of downstream efficiencies in settlement and corporate actions. With that in place, hopefully we are able to drive down the cost of financial institutions and services providers, in that way allowing for the fractionalization of these assets, okay, breaking it down into smaller sizes and improve liquidity when we are able to allow more investors and a more diverse range of participants. But of course, in that case, we still need to be able to enforce investor subscription and trading eligibility. So with the use of the blockchain, we are actually able to enforce right on the smart contract layer, okay, the way that we are enforcing eligibility and restrictions for investors. And that will also flow downstream into the next few points, which are green in color because they are very relevant to the green bond space, whereby we are also able to track the management of proceeds on the blockchain and use other forms of technology with the blockchain to track the movement of supplies in the supply chain. With that, we will be able to provide real-time on-demand reporting, which is very effective for impact reporting, and for certain scoring of ESG bonds or asset classes, which will of course tackle, as our guest panelist has spoken about, greenwashing, okay, and deliver real impact, okay, to the area of ESG. So of course, the background story of how we came together to discuss this use case, back in over 2 months ago, we look at this problem statement where the United Nations, they have quoted that there is about a 2.5 trillion US dollars of annual sustainable development goal financing gap right now. Every year, we need to bridge a further 2.5 trillion. So as we look at this problem statement, we are wondering to ourselves, how can we enable such green bond issuers to be able to use technology to unlock more capital in the capital markets in a way that will satisfy the ESG investors, allowing them to have visibility over the use of proceeds and impact reporting. So we embark on this case study together, and we'd like to share, like to ask the guest panelists to share something based on this process and experiences that we had so far. So why don't we start with you, Siu Qi?
Okay, so with asset tokenization, we see that DLT technology has the potential to create non-traditional financial assets. So let's say, for instance, a carbon token. So this unlocks new sources of financing, thereby increasing financing flows for sustainable development. DLT enables an open, immutable, and participatory database. So there's real-time storage, validation, and access to data, and this would bring significant advantages to green finance and impact investment. Also, green elements can be incorporated into a sustainability token. So on this topic, I will dive deeper into how ESG framework and taxonomy can be incorporated into a SDG bond later in the demo session. Thanks.
Thanks, Siu Qi. Maya, do you have anything that you can share?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Ben. So I think if we put things into context, right, 2.5 trillion per annual does sound like a lot, but to be honest, if you compare the pool of investable assets today, especially in terms of sustainable investment assets, they have just exceeded 30 trillion globally. So in fact, we do have enough capacity to bridge this gap. I guess then the question is then how could we possibly match this pool of investors and assets to the appropriate beneficiaries, which I think today through the demonstration we will then also see how we can use DLT to speed up the efficiency of matching assets to the correct pools of investors, and to a certain extent the diverse sort of ESG investors with their different ESG goals, sustainable goals across the entire time frame of these investments.
That's very encouraging, Mia. Thanks. And Ram, anything to add?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Ben. And I think the thing is that if we're looking at ESG as an investment, you can take it two ways, right? There's the investment hat and of course, the tech hat. For the investment side, I think a lot of the different investors in the past, they were thinking that ESG, it's something nice to have. It might be something that you can use to set your company apart a little bit. But maybe some investors honestly didn't know if that was something that would generate significant added returns. And what we've seen recently, and you can check the studies on this one, some of the ESG funds and ESG investments or ESG related companies, they're actually outperforming the non-ESG funds. So when you see something like this, it gives you more motivation, right? That ESG is not something that's just nice to have. It actually is something that you need for long-term sustained growth and returns. And because of that, as Mayor said, there's already a demand there for getting into these different kinds of asset classes. So that's when you have to go into the tech side. Do we have the infrastructure needed to actually support this? Because I'm sure there are a lot of firms, whether they're large corporates or even SMEs, that can address this problem in ESG, but they have problems in terms of gaining access to the financing options. And now we're going to discuss over the next, I would say 40, 50 minutes or so, what are the different things that are out there right now so that we can give them the access to this financing.
Really great, great. Thanks, Ram. So thank you, Xiu Qi, Mayor, and Ram. This has been very, very, very insightful. And of course, after the various conversations that we had as a group over the last few months, we have come together to create a green financing customer journey, whereby we will also be demonstrating it over a live demo shortly. But this journey looks something like this. So we use an example. Okay, this is just an example of a solar panel farm that is trying to raise funds for building it. Okay, so therefore, we are now able to create all these parameters of the bond and the green elements of its framework into the smart contract. And as a smart contract, as a token, as a bond token, it is now able to have various downstream actions. For example, we are now able to enforce its subscription eligibilities and ESG mandates. Okay, they say there are 50 shades of green. Okay, whereby different types of green investors invest differently. Here we are able to even so-called program their so-called interests, okay, or their focus into the various elements of green. Okay, for example, some people may invest in renewable energy. Some people may invest in so-called climate change. Okay, in areas of climate change, while other people are investing in other areas of social inclusion, etc. So this is where we are able to program eligibility and investment mandates further downstream, and of course support efficient DVP settlements. With the use of smart contracts, we envision settlements to be quicker, more efficient, and of course more effective. And in that case, we will also be able to track the use of funds. Okay, and also enforce the use of funds. Firstly, we want to be able to onboard suppliers which are green certified. So this green certification may be existing standards of the Singapore Green Label, where suppliers will get a digital identity. They will have a blockchain address where only such suppliers are able to receive funds. And all of this will be transparent on the blockchain, whereby any participant will be able to view it in assurance that the blockchain is storing an immutable source of truth. Of course, from a service provider perspective, we are now also able to automate the coupon payouts and redemption of principal, as I said, drive the cost down, and therefore be able to support these ESG investors or fund raisers more effectively. Of course, at the end of it all, we want to be able to track and report on impact. There needs to be a qualitative and quantitative reporting, which will prevent greenwashing and also provide investors the assurance that what they have done and where they have invested in is really fulfilling what it has been said to. So with that in mind, with the various inputs and the insights from the collaborators, we came up with a journey and produced a platform, okay, which is our existing Trident platform, where we customize it to be able to support the end-to-end lifecycle management of green financing in a box. So what's inside this box? So first of all, our blockchain, STACS, and its respective smart contracts have been deployed already. So you could deploy a node on your physical on-premise servers, or it could be on your private cloud or public cloud. We also have a layer of APIs above the blockchain that is integrated and interacting with our own front-end interface, Trident. It has also started to interact with existing bank systems in an experimental basis. And as we go into production, we expect the APIs to be integratable with the trade booking system, treasury system, and account structure of financial institutions. We have also started integrating with payment systems, which I'm quite excited to show you shortly. Okay, and besides this, within Trident itself, we have various modules that are already available today. For example, issuance, subscription, servicing. And we will have time to be demonstrating these three. We have other modules like custody, reporting, and trading that we will delay that for another session. So with that in mind, we can jump into the platform as a live demonstration. And for that, we have a demo so-called workflow already. So this takes care of the entire end-to-end life cycle of a bond. For example, we start with the creation of a bond, down to the arranging of a sale, down to the investor primary markets, and then asset servicing. And everything is happening on our blockchain browser. So firstly, when we started with the so-called life cycle, we start right on the top with digital bond creation. And for that, we have received a lot of valuable insights from the Deutsche Bank team, being a large service provider and being a large trustee and issuing and paying agent. We were able to get a lot of insights from them, okay, in this process of creating a new digital bond. So with that, okay, let's jump into the demo and we'll show you shortly. So I am now showing my screen. Okay, so this is a screen where I've already logged in to the platform, the Trident platform. So it's the page where we are able to now issue bonds on the blockchain. So for full context, this is actually a front-end interface where it is interacting on smart contract layer with the blockchain. So everything that you see here right now is actually a smart contract. So just that it's in a table format where we are able to have a so-called dummy guide to creating a smart contract without using programming language. So of course, I've already previewed these fields just before this session so that we can save time now. So example, we are now creating a solar farm bond. We have already created a bond based on the company identifier and the ISIN code. And if I go next, we are now going to create $1 billion worth of the bond at $1 each. Next. And the coupon payouts and principal so-called payment periods, and it's early callable 2 years later. Now, this is the interesting part. We are now also able to input the green bond framework into the bond, into the token. So for example, okay, here we are using the IGMA green bond principles. If it's another type of bond, for example, social inclusion, it will be something else. But for green bond, for example, let's just say that we want to make sure that investors who are allowed to invest in renewable energy and energy efficiency, etc., are able to invest in this, firstly. Secondly, the issuer will only be allowed to send the proceeds to suppliers who are in this space. At the same time, definitely, okay, the investors who do not invest in so-called alcohol or tobacco or further downstream, okay, right from the top, they will also not be allowed to interact with these bonds if they are using the proceeds to fund alcohol, tobacco related industries. So note that this could be going further downstream, multiple layers, or further upstream, multiple layers, depending on the perspective of the investor or the issuer. That's where we are able to prevent a scenario whereby a certain sovereign fund, for example, is investing into multiple funds where the sub funds could be investing in a mandate that is different from their original top mandate. Okay, so if I go on next. And trade restrictions is really for investor eligibility. At this point in time, we are actually so-called able to whitelist a certain demographic of investors. In this example, we are allowing for Singaporean national and residents, both institutions and accredited investors with risk tolerance on a scale of 1 to 5, 4. In other words, only risk tolerance invest of 4 and 5 will be able to invest in these bonds. And if I go on next, okay, here we are able to upload certain documents. So for example, legal agreements, for example, public prospectus, this will all be able to be uploaded. We can also upload audit reports, second party opinions regarding the green framework, etc. So finally, we are reviewing these fields, these fields that we have already just filled in. And the moment I click on next, we will be able to submit and publish this onto the blockchain. So this has been submitted successfully. What I've done is that I have issued a bond on the blockchain. Without doing much of programming, I have now issued 1 billion of these solar farm tokens onto the blockchain. We gotta wait a moment. And then if I refresh, okay, it's in traffic right now. But if you look at the other bonds that I created yesterday, for example, okay, this is a smart contract on the browser. If you come back here, it has been done. Okay, we have just created 1 billion of solar farm bonds. Clicking on this again, this is the blockchain browser, which shows all the activity on our blockchain. So this took place, this is GMT timing, so it's 8 hours behind us in Singapore. So just a few seconds ago, we have just created a new smart contract, and this represents a solar farm bond. All the parameters of the smart contract are here. So as mentioned, we have now created a digitalized bond, and this bond now takes on a life of its own. It will execute certain actions based on certain determined conditions here. So we have already completed the first part, which is issuing and creating a digital bond. So coming back to this presentation, okay, we have finished the first part, and I'm going to jump to the next slide, okay, to allow Xiuqi from Deutsche Bank to walk us through some of the thoughts and considerations from this process. Xiuqi.
Thanks, Ben. So to explain what Ben has demonstrated on the Trident platform, we can see that key bond attributes are captured upfront. So where ecosystem participants from issuers, custodians, arrangers, and so on have access to the same data. So the availability of this bond information allows for early and efficient creation of the instrument in downstream systems. So in current day process, data limitations and message truncations in the message-based data transmission between multiple participants create delays and inefficiencies. So due to a lack of common up-to-date information source, this can result in time-consuming and costly reconciliation of data. So with the concurrent access to the same set of data, improves communication flows and eliminates the need for multiple bilateral information exchange, because the network participants could share information on the blockchain in a trusted and secure manner. Next, I will touch on how the platform can potentially enable ESG labeling from the start. So ESG framework and taxonomy are tied to the instrument in the creation state. So this enables programming of ESG conditional business logic for downstream benefits. It opens up the possibility of incorporating multiple ESG frameworks, catering to respective ESG requirements and impact reporting. So the value proposition here is that technology can lower barriers of entry to issue ESG bond. So why is taxonomy important for ESG investment? By creating a common taxonomy, it facilitates ESG investment. So for instance, it's stated as one of the top priorities in ASEAN capital market sustainability agenda. So having the capability to use accepted ESG taxonomy at the digital bond creation stage will help promote transparency and provide consistency and comparability to investors in the sustainability market. At the same time, the new infrastructure offers transaction transparency, where the use of proceeds can be tracked, monitored, and reported. So as what Ben has demonstrated, the smart contracts can be programmed to enforce the use of proceeds for sustainable investing. So he highlighted that by permitting or prohibiting the use of proceeds in specific economic activities based on the ESG mandates. So coupled with data analytics, further assessment and measurement of ESG impact can be performed, allowing for KPI-linked impact reporting. So in all, these capabilities will unlock new opportunities for service providers. They can provide bespoke ESG services designed to match the diverse needs of the asset managers. Yep, thanks, Ben. Back to you.
Thanks very much, Xiuqi. So after the bond has been already deployed on the blockchain, now we can move on to the next part, which is we will want to be able to launch it for sale, and of course at the same time allow investors to purchase it. So for this next segment, we have received a lot of input from both the UBS team and the Union Bank team from their respective expertise. So I'll jump straight into the demo first. So coming to, not this screen, sorry, this one. Okay, so we have just created the solar farm bonds as we just saw. Now it's time to launch it. So launching these for sale, okay, ESG bonds, okay, we will create a new what we call project. So this is a Singapore FinTech Festival solar farm bond, all right? So bond, okay, let me give spacing. Solar farm bond, December 2025. Okay, tranche 1. Okay, because we are able to perform multiple tranches. So the security token code will be the most recent one. Payment address, security name, subscription type. So here we actually offer a few ways of operating models. You know, we envision new operating models in the future, okay, whereby private simply means that we are now able to pick up a counterparty and offer a certain allocation to that certain counterparty in a different tranche from the main tranche. Whereas offer is really where, you know, we have a current, is similar to the current business model, where it's arranger-led, you know, where there are a few counterparties or multiple counterparties, and we are all so-called offering for the same bond. So for now, let's stick to the current model where there's $1 billion, okay, that has already been issued, but for now we could be drawing it down over multiple tranches. Okay, so payment method right now we have already integrated a few different payment methods. For example, STACS, Ubin, Libra, Swift, and soon to come PHX. So what is STACS, so-called payment channel? It simply means there's a digital currency within our own blockchain. It could be issued by a bank, whereby therefore we will therefore allow the atomic delivery versus payment in the blockchain instantly in one single transaction. For Ubin, it is where we demonstrated yesterday as part of the Ubin showcase under the FinTech Festival. We are able to integrate with the Ubin payments network such that whenever an execution of a trade happens in STACS, okay, it is served by a payment in Ubin. And once that is completed, the settlement and the delivery of the securities will happen back in STACS. So this is something that we can showcase now. And Libra is the same. Okay, simply put, whenever there's an execution in STACS, we are also sending a notification to the Libra network for the buyer to be sending Libra tokens to the seller. And once the seller receives it, it will send a notification back to STACS to complete the delivery of the security. And Swift is quite straightforward, whereby we will produce a message output that is compatible with the Swift network, such that the banks can take on the Swift output message and process it further downstream. So for the sake of today's demo, let's just do two of them. Okay, let's start with one with, for example, Ubin. Okay, and sorry, shouldn't be my address. Yep, Ubin address. Okay, and quantity, we mentioned that we issued $1 billion, but let's just say we want to be able to draw down 200 million for now, just for now. All right. Okay, and the subscription unit price $1 each. Maximum purchase and minimum purchase. Okay, so maximum purchase, let's just say that we allow large investors, okay, to come in at 100 million. And minimum purchase, typically a bond could be priced for minimum purchase in the private banks for individual investors to be about 200,000. But let's just say there's a new business model where we allow it to be as low as 10,000. All right, using the Ubin network. Settlement in US dollars, incremental denominations such as 1,000 so that we prevent odd numbers, and subscription period from now to the end of the month, or maybe now to tomorrow to be more realistic. Okay, payment deadline and instant settlement. Okay, here we are also able to create bespoke settlement periods. For example, for certain type of tranches, instead of T+2 or T+5, which is the standard right now, okay, why can't we do it T plus a certain pre-agreed date with the buyer, especially when we're talking about a customizable transaction between just two counterparties, as we just saw in one of the option fields there. So possibly we could create a new business model where party A and party B could pre-agree to a certain settlement time. In the market today, mostly it's T+5. What if we are able to do a T+1? What if we're able to do a T+3? Based on a pre-agreed settlement period. But for now, let's just keep it to instant, so that we want to see the most powerful technology in place, instant settlement. All right. And of course, description, this will be test tranche 1. Next. So just to review whatever we just done, we have created a tranche 1 for sale using the Ubin payment channel. Maximum quantity, okay, 100 million each. Okay, maximum to be sold is 200 million. Okay, $1. Okay, at par value. Okay, and if we submit this will be going into the blockchain as a smart contract. So as a deployed smart contract, what's going to happen is that because 200 million was indicated by myself, okay, this 200 million will be kept aside and reserved within the blockchain. And when somebody is able to meet the criteria to invest in it, it will have a transaction automatically on the blockchain. So let's do another launch, because you mentioned you can do multiple tranches. So let's do it again. Solar bonds. Okay, tranche 2. Again, we are using the same security code, payment address, the same. So you'll notice that we had $1 billion available for sale. Now, because this is a different tranche, all right, if you imagine this to be another date, okay, it is now only 800 million left. Similarly, we could do it, on a one-to-one basis or on an Avenger Lab group basis. Okay, let's just do the offers one. Similarly, we can choose different type of payment methods. Let's use Libra now. Okay, and therefore the address will be the Libra address. Quantity, let's make it a smaller number because the Libra vision is to drive financial inclusion, for example. So maybe here we are trying to target a more diverse range of investors. So maybe 100 million instead of 200. Similarly, let's just say it's at par, $1 each. Okay, maximum purchase because we want more people to participate. So maybe a million. And minimum purchase, let's make it very significant for inclusion. Minimum $1 each. Let's try minimum $1 each, and in sizes of 1 denominations for incremental lots. Subscription period, perhaps because it's more public, we can have a longer period of subscription on a retail basis. Payment deadline, therefore, at the end of the period. And here, okay, we are doing a test tranche 2. Okay, similarly, we're going to do an instant DVP settlement. So looking back and reviewing this smart contract, okay, this is tranche 2, 100 million for sale at $1 each. Okay, right now it's denoted as Libra for now. Okay, test tranche 2, minimum purchase. Now this is interesting, only $1 in lot size of $1 each. Okay, submit. So what I've done is that I've deployed 2 smart contracts. One of it was already done, 200 million. The other one is processing. It should appear anytime now. Yes, success. So these are actually smart contracts. As we mentioned, we are now reserving 100 million and 200 million respectively in the blockchain, whereby when we are eligible and if we have the funds to pay, we will be able to get the bonds immediately in the instant settlement, so-called example. So that has been done. Okay, the arranger so-called role has been completed. Now let me just come into the platform as another persona. Okay, this persona now is as an investor. So of course, when we talk about investor, we don't really mean the end investors in this context yet. We are talking about the bank that represents the investor. So this persona is as a bank. So let's say a bank is logging in now, and they are logged in and they represent multiple investors. So this bank represents, just for example, 4 investors. There's a United States institution, there's a Singapore institution, there's a Malaysian institution, and there's a United States individual. So this is to mimic, today's bank system where investors are on board the bank so-called systems, and then each one of them have a blockchain address in the blockchain. So right now, okay, we are also able to view their assets in Ubin and Libra, because that's what we're going to use later on. Okay, so Ubin, we are connected with the Ubin network. Okay, so this is the address. We need to query the balance. It has 79,289. Let's remember this number. Okay, 79,000, because the number will change shortly. And let's look at Libra. Okay, there's way more in Libra. Okay, so that's a lot of money. Okay, so anyway, let's just remember the last 3 numbers, 406. Okay, 406 in Libra and 79,000. And now let's start to buy some bonds. Okay, looking at tranche 1 and tranche 2, so there are different types of payments. Let's do the first one, which is Libra. Okay, so Libra. Okay, so noting that this is the bond parameters that we just created under Solar Farm, trading restriction, just to remind ourselves, okay, only Singaporeans are allowed to invest. And again, now I'm a bank, I represent all my investors. Let's say my US client tries to invest in it. Okay, although it's clear that you cannot invest as a US client, let's just try 100. Okay. You'll notice that it returns an error message. Okay, we can actually check the error message later on in the blockchain, but let's just try to proceed with the successful transaction. So as a Singapore institution, it'll be available. Let's try 200 instead. Okay. Submit it to the blockchain. It will send an instruction to the blockchain as a smart contract. Okay, and then it will complete shortly. But let's continue first and purchase another order in the Ubin network. All right, so Ubin, okay. Similarly, for United States, even if I try to, let's try to buy 20,000, the transaction will fail. Okay, so it sent a information to the blockchain to try to execute the transaction, but it failed. Okay, let's just use the right one, the Singapore institution, $10,000 from the Ubin address. Confirm. And transaction has done. Okay, let's check the orders now on the blockchain. Okay, you'll notice that under we tried 100 Libra using the United States institution. KYC verification failed, and if you check on the details, it's actually available on the blockchain. So what we have done is that we actually send the transaction to the blockchain. Even if you try to go around the exchange or go around the front end and you try to send the API directly to the blockchain, it will also fail on the blockchain, because the blockchain is able to read your digital identity and restricted participants from participating. So this has been done, it's failed on the blockchain. Let's look at the one that has succeeded, the 200 Libra that has succeeded. Okay, details. So there are a few interesting details here. First of all, TXID is the transaction in our blockchain. Okay, the 200, or is it 100? Yeah, it's 200. The 200 bond units have been sent from the seller to the buyer. At the same time, more importantly, let's look at this, because this is actually the Libra browser. Okay, it's now renamed to the DM Explorer. Okay, so we have received back a payment detail, which is this payment number 353248887. Looking at 353248887 order ID, this is the transaction that just took place between the seller and the buyer. So buyer has paid from his address 200 Libra coins to the seller. Okay, note that this is a testnet, all right? So it's not an actual transaction, but this has been technically done. All right, and this is already on the blockchain, just to confirm that we are looking at the right thing. Okay, so just to confirm we're looking at the right thing, let's come back to the address center. So under the ESG bonds, under my United States address, I will have received 0, because I'm not allowed to purchase it. Under my Singapore institution, I will have received 10,200, 200 for paying in Libra, 10,000 for paying in Ubin. All right, and if I look at my Libra balance, notice that if you remember, we are supposed to have a balance of 406. Now it's only 206. If I look at the entire address, which I can copy and look at this from, okay, it's too long, let's paste. You'll notice that all the transactions of on record will come out. And yes, about 2 minutes ago, we made the payment of 200 coins from the buyer to the seller. So this is confirmed. It is the right address. We have completed a transaction on a cross-chain basis. Okay, of course, let's look at Ubin. Ubin is easier to remember. I remember we're at 79,000 query, and we need to refresh shortly. Query again. Okay, so give it a moment or two. Okay. Yep, now it's 69,000. So $10,000 have left my Ubin payment address to the seller. So we have completed, back to orders again. We have completed the transaction, for both the Libra network and the Ubin network. Of course, one last point to note, we mentioned that we were integrating to PHX at the moment. At the same time, we are also able to simulate, on the visual representation of what we are actually doing right now, with the Union Bank. So of course, PHX is the stablecoin of Union Bank. In this interface, there is 0 bonds and 500 million of PHX. So let's assume that because the inclusion vision of Union Bank has one of the main reasons to drive to the use of PHX. Let's just say that now we are trying to buy $1 bond. $1 US is about 49 pesos. This is just an example. Clicking on it, we have subscribed, for 49 pesos, 1 bond. I could do it again. All right, and let's just do a different number. Let's use 10 instead. So it's 490, subscribe, 10 units done. Yes. So whatever that we are doing with Union Bank right now is that we are going to integrate, the PHX via the API to send a transaction onto the blockchain. So this is in progress right now on the back end. We will hopefully be able to show this on the front end soon. But otherwise, we have just completed the transactions of launching the bond and also investing into it. So at this point in time, I'd like to invite my collaborators from UBS, Mayor, and of course, Ram from Union Bank to share more of their perspective. Over to you first, Mayor.
Thanks, Ben. So that is indeed a lot. I think just to provide some context from the arranger point of view, I think what Susie mentioned about the upstream logic that is programmed into the bond kind of flows downstream. It would really allow, in an ESG context, it will really allow us to create different assets, tagged to different kind of taxonomies and also frameworks. And then in that sense, we are able to syndicate and distribute out to different types of ESG investors, with different kind of mandates, different kind of risk appetites. I think this was also shown by the ability to tranche certain security, in this case the bond, in different stages, and each stage you have the option to sort of customize and configure different settlement modes, such as public offering or even a private placement, and then you can even adjust the minimum denomination and also settlement periods. I think this all in all really showcases the flexibility of using DLT in issuing a bond, even if it's a conventional one. And I think on top of that, one more point to add is that flexibility in settling in different payment modes, right? Such as digital cash, or even a CBDC, or even a SWIFT network. It really opens up more avenues to transact with multiple different counterparties for a single asset, that has been created on this DLT blockchain platform. I think it really opens up the option to arrange bespoke kind of solutions for certain clients and fulfill their needs. I think it's very, very interesting to see where this goes. As you mentioned earlier, right now we are still in these early stages. The full potential for this DLT platform is yet to be fully explored yet. And I think for that, I'll just pass on to Ram to talk about the investor side.
Thanks, Mayor. And I agree. I mean, Union Bank's long-term goal, of course, is to co-create innovations for a better world. And that's why we're lucky to have partners such as STACS, UBS, of course, Deutsche, because what you want to find out is, can this technology really help integrate those things? And one of the things that you mentioned, right, the flexibility that we get with using this technology in terms of not only the issuer side, having the efficiencies to be able to launch certain issuances at lower lot sizes, but it's also for the end investor. When we're trying to put ourselves in the shoes of the end investor, usually we're thinking of people who are well-to-do, they're wealthier, they're people who can afford something that might normally have a $200,000 minimum lot size. But when you want to expand the market, when you're trying to tap a different market, it really needs to trickle down. So this technology and the ability for us to be able to, as shown by Ben, right, issue in maybe one coin, one Libra, one PHX, it allows for us to tap a new market. That kind of innovation is what's needed, because we mentioned that new companies might want to find out if they can use this technology to raise finances. But you also have to look at it from the investor side. Can we, as a bank, for example, who's collecting these orders, can we find a way to offer it on our applications, offer it to people who maybe this is going to be the first time they're investing and they don't want to invest in a corporation that their values don't align with their own personal values? So I would be, as an investor, I would be very happy to find out that now, even if I don't have maybe hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, I can invest in companies that might align with my own vision of what the world should be.
Thanks, Ram. Thanks, Mayor. Thanks. So we have finished the bit about arranging and investing into the DLT bond with ESG focus. Now we are going to go into the last bit. But before that, there's just a minor point to note for secondary trading. We will not be able to have the time to demonstrate this right now, but a lot of the principles are the same with the primary markets, with the smart contract being able to enforce trading eligibility, and the digital ledger removing the need for repeated reconciliations. And of course, we already have multiple payment channels for efficient settlements. So the last bit that we are going to show as a demo is the asset servicing. We have already created a bond. We have started selling it in the primary markets. We have already invested in it, and we assume that it's now traded on the secondary market. Now we are going to start serving it. Okay, so moving to the last bit with a lot of contributions from the Deutsche Bank team. Okay, here we are. Okay, so there is an asset servicing center here. So what are the functionality available on the blockchain? First of all, let's look at the solar farm bonds, the one that we just created, the one we just sold. All right, there is this function called attestation. What does it really mean? So imagining a future role, whereby somebody is actually tracking the impact of the bond. All right, so for example, we said that we're going to raise 300 million from the bond sale just now of 200 and 100 million. Let's just say that 20 million, right, has been paid to supplier X, okay, which is already green certified, with a certain number, right? So this is something that I'm going to record onto the blockchain. Secondly, I just decided that there's something else that I want to share to the public, right? So maybe there's an audit report, okay, done, and it's available at this link, audit.com/ this is the number, for example, okay. And these records are actually immutably recorded, kept onto the blockchain, where we are now able to, okay, I have always have problems scrolling. Bear with me for a moment. Yeah, okay. So attestation records. Okay, so now you can see that we have now recorded two pieces of information onto the blockchain. Firstly, okay, I have recorded that, $20 million paid to a supplier X, green certified certain certification number. I have also recorded that, at this certain point in time, there's an audit report that's available here. Okay, so these are now on the immutable layer of the blockchain for reporting, and is available to respective or qualified participants who want to read information from the blockchain for scoring of the bond or scoring of the asset. All right, so this is now available as a new function. Otherwise, traditional functionality like coupon payouts and early redemption or full redemption are also available. Let's just do it now. Again, this is a demo, so let's just assume that the coupon period has arrived, although we just literally produced the bond a few moments ago. So for that to do so, for us to do so, we need to calculate the number of token holders and their holdings. Okay, refresh. Okay, it is now calculated and is pending the what we call the payout of coupon payouts. So to distribute the payouts, now this is the role of a custodian or paying agent. Okay, we are using the so-called record as of a moment ago. Okay, total holdings, yes, there were about 300 million, assuming that we have completed the sale, and this is the coupon payout due, assuming that this is the first coupon payment. All right, so assuming the issuer has already paid the custodian, and therefore now we are going to pay it out. So this is going to be done on the blockchain as a single batch transaction to everybody who is holding the token. Of course, back to the same point about integrated with payment channels. While we are doing this on the blockchain, it is also integrated with the payment channel. So whatever it is, it could be Libra, it could be Ubin, or it could be just a Swift message. It is sending a message to make payment. All right. So if I just click on refresh, okay, it will be a moment or two, but if I click on view now, you'll be able to see there are three addresses. Okay, so first of all, if you remember the Singapore institution that bought 10,000 and 200 bonds, and of course we assume that the other sizes have been bought up by the institutions. Okay, so these are the amounts that needs to be dispersed. Okay, if I just give it another moment, okay, it will be completed shortly. Okay, so all the records will also be recorded here, okay, under the coupon payments, okay, records. All right, so it's still paying right now, but it will be available shortly, and then it will appear here. Okay, at the same time, we will also be able to make early redemption if we wanted to. Okay, for that, we will therefore, of course, have to freeze the bond and not allow it to be transferable anymore, and then we can just redeem it in one single transaction. Okay, let me just come back here, okay, to make sure that it is ready. Oh, this is a different bond, sorry. It's a ES, yeah, this one. Yeah, here, it has been done. Okay, under coupon payout, yes, it has been done. Okay, so if I click on view, okay, so the 300 million has been, for the holders of the 300 million, they have received their coupon payments. Clicking on the transaction ID, you'll notice that everything is now on the blockchain. Okay, so coming back to our platform again, okay, we will not, we will save time and not do the redemption for now. It is just going to be something like this, right? Freezing it and then paying out, the same process that we had just now. All right, but I'll just come back to the presentation. Okay, so we have completed the life cycle management of the asset. We have walked you through how we have created the digital bond, how we have launched it for general sale, how we have gotten some investors to purchase it, and now we have completed the asset servicing. I'll hand over to Xiu Qi for the last bit, which is the asset servicing and some of the thoughts and considerations from her. Xiu Qi.
Thanks, Ben. So with the terms of the bond coded into the smart contract during the digital bond creation state, such as like the coupon rate, the redemption date, and so on, it allows for the automatic calculation and payment of periodic coupons, as well as principal upon maturity date. So on maturity date or on the early redemption date, there is a freeze mechanism which stops the transfer of the bonds. So hence, relevant holdings and payments can be computed and dispersed to the bondholders thereafter. So what are the key inefficiencies in the current process? So if we look at the traditional coupon payment process, bond payments today are often made by the issuer via a paying agent. Then the coupon payment is transferred from the paying agent to the CSD and the CSD to the custodian, which then credit the investors. So in between, there are multiple reconciliations that occur between the various set of participants. So in a DLT-enabled platform, access to a common ledger removes the need to maintain multiple records of different bond ownership details. So this eliminates the need for reconciliations involving multiple parties, leading to efficiencies and reduced costs. Therefore, asset servicing can be performed with higher speed and precision. I will also now touch on the perceived benefits in the bond settlement process. As you can see, DLT enables DVP settlement of the tokenized bonds and payment. The instantaneous and simultaneous transfer of the tokens reduces settlement risk and achieves operational efficiencies. So to share, STACS has participated in Project Ubin last year, and it was demonstrated that the STACS platform can be integrated with Ubin network. So Ubin being a CBDC enables central bank money settlement, thereby removing the credit risk related to commercial bank settlement. Lastly, as a single source of truth for the participants on the network, there's real-time visibility of the transaction and status. So participants are automatically updated of the status without having to request for one. That's all I have. Back to you, Ben.
Thank you very much, Suchi. Thanks. So as a summary, we have seen from the entire demo and of course from the perspective of our three guest panelists, okay, the following features and benefits. Just as a quick summary, we are able to now see a more efficient and rapid issuance of a bond. We hope that using pre-configured smart contracts and templates like we just did, we are able to produce bonds within days rather than weeks. So that is available to allow issuers to capitalize on funding opportunities like in the current climate. We are also able to support greater efficiencies in settlement. This could even be very bespoke between two counterparties with flexibility in settlement cycles and different types of payment channels, and also smooth out communication between multi-party with concurrent access to the digital ledger. We are also able to provide a distributed ledger where every single transaction and holdings and investor holdings are available on a immutable source of truth, and also record the use of proceeds and any other information for reporting of the green bond. So I would like to also hand over to all three of our guest panelists to see if they have any thoughts, other additional thoughts on how the DLT platform has been helpful, or okay, in the future state, will it be able to support further the ESG investing mandates of ESG investors? So let's start with you, Mayor.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. So I think going back to what you mentioned earlier about this 2.5 trillion funding gap, it is a very important time for us to ask, whether technology, in this case, DLT issuance, can really help us to enable to help our clients to originate, kind of interesting transactions, and at the same time, match them with the right investors at the right time to catalyze, the necessary changes to shape a better tomorrow. I think going on this, just one more point to add, when we look at globally or even APAC as a whole, groups of countries are at varying stages of development. So there's really no one size fit all in terms of sustainable investing or ESG. Investment priorities will really differ between, say, mainland China, who has just pledged, net zero, versus India, where you could argue that the healthcare infrastructure would need some help. So really, I think this DLT, in terms of the flexibility, in terms of the efficiencies, really would help us, accelerate ourselves towards the matching of the right assets with the right investors. So yeah, that's all from me. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Mayor. Ram, can you have anything to share?
Yeah, I really like what Mayor said about matching the right investors, because that's one of the things that is probably stopping some people from really believing that we're getting closer to this. If I'm an investor and I'm trying to invest in something that's supposedly ESG compliant or something that's supposedly SDG focused, what is really my validation that that investment will end up going to that actual use case or that use of proceeds? And I think that with what's happening right now, with the improvement of IoT or the Internet of Things, we can find ways to ensure that this is more possible. So if I'm someone, whether I'm representing an institution, like for example, a university endowment fund, or someone who is representing themselves and believes that I want to invest in these companies that are very compliant with, again, my values, I need to find out who's going to verify that this is the end case or this is the end use of proceeds. Whether that's going to be an institution, as you mentioned, that is going to audit and verify this, or maybe it's proof, some kind of URL, some kind of link that shows where it's going to end up going, or maybe in the future it becomes even more technologically advanced such that I can end up seeing the place where the funds are going to, if that's going to be used to build out the solar panel in our use case. That's something that I'm very interested in. And I'm sure that there are a lot of investors who would not just want to say that they've invested in a green bond, but can say, I invested in this green bond and the end use case is building out this farm, for example. So that I think is one of the interesting things that we're going to have as this progresses. Perhaps in the future state, when a lot of the other countries are able to tech up as well, we can show people that when you're investing in a certain asset class, this is the end result. And that's something that's going to benefit everyone.
Thanks, Ram. So Xiuqi, for you to wrap up.
Thanks. So to extend on what Meyer and Ram has mentioned about financial inclusion and ESG, one of the ASEAN sustainability roadmap priority is to catalyze an increase in sustainable financial products and raise financial resources for underserved areas. So in particular, small and medium micro size enterprises. So blockchain technology could help achieve this by unlocking new sources of financing, lower cost of issuance will increase adoption. So where SMEs and not just large corporates can leverage on green financing. So this can increase and incentivize institutions and consumers' willingness and ability to contribute to building long-term sustainability. At the same time, the technology can bring cost-effective visibility to alignment with sustainability goals. So the platform can be a way to standardize the data, assess asset performance, and enhance compliance. So this can bring greater accountability and transparency to impact measurement and reporting process. So having said so, more must be done to explore how DLT and blockchain-enabled platforms can help asset managers and participants to overcome the current ESG data and reporting requirements. Also, I would like to touch on the cross-border transactions. So what I foresee, or what my view is in the future, with tighter integration into like the Ubin multi-currency payment network, participants in the value chain are connected and are enabled to place transactions on a safe and common platform. So there could be further efficiencies in cross-border securities transactions. So present-day cross-border transactions involve multiple intermediaries, and the participants operate in different time zones, so leading to complex processes and multiple processing of information. So a DLT platform would enable faster transactions and reduce reconciliations required for cross-border settlement. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Xiuqi. So we come to the end of the presentation. It's time for some questions because I see 3 questions already entered into the chat. So in the interest of time, I'll probably choose only 2 of the questions. Okay, and first question, actually, I think this first question I will handle, which is, are there real-life use cases of this platform and any data to reflect improvements on their operations and profitability in general? All right, so I will take this question on behalf of the clients, of our clients. So essentially, there are some real-life use cases. Yes, okay, we will be announcing certain reports later on. Okay, so there's not a lot of public information available yet. Okay, we are still working with some of our clients right now. Okay, and some of the users right now to be able to generate some reports. Of course, publicly available news about STACS and some of our clients are already available online using this platform. Okay, so those are still a lot in progress and more announcements will be made shortly. Okay, next question. How soon do you foresee, okay, this is for all of us, how soon do you foresee banks to start utilizing DLT for ESG or green bond issuance? Any comments? How soon do you foresee the banks to start utilizing DLT for ESG or green bonds issuance? I don't think we need the exact date, but maybe more of a time. Yeah.
No, Ben, I think that is a very good question, right? So as with any kind of technology or financial technology in that sense, it takes multiple players together. So I think to that end, banks like us working together with our partners, hashtag, and working together with regulators like MAS, right? And I think our regulators around play a very important role in trying to set up a framework, a proper framework for all of us to follow, and to sort of work within that framework to ensure that the integrity of the financial markets are still protected. Because at the end of the day, what we have are the interests of the investors and the clients. So I know it's a long answer to the question, and you don't really get an answer from me. But I think what I'm trying to drive here is to really talk about our collaboration, together with the different parties involved. And I believe together we will be able to sort of roll out this DLT technology in a proper and systematic way to ensure that everybody has some form of transition. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks.
To extend what Maya has mentioned, so DLT, we can say that it's potentially able to bring about various efficiencies and benefits to the industry, from processes, operational efficiencies, and so on. From ESG perspective, other than regulatory aspects and so on, I believe that more work needs to be done to better understand how the technology can ensure asset protection and how it translates to benefits to clients, for instance, cost reduction and so on. So, we need to investigate further and collaborate with the various partners and so on to better understand how this can work. Thanks.
Maybe just to add on, though, of course, it's very difficult to put a timetable, as Ben mentioned, right? The things that we're trying to do right now is really building the infrastructure. In terms of how long it would take, of course, it depends. If you think about how far DLT has gone in the past decade, how much farther it could go the next decade, it will really determine what will happen, because as we're trying to build this up with partners like STACS, UBS, Deutsche, and of course Union Bank, we're trying to show use cases, proof of concepts, things that will allow a regulator and even the investing public to find out that this is something that's feasible. And once we reach that point where, well, at least for our side, if we can prove to the issuers that this is something that is going to provide cost efficiencies for them, if we can show the retail investors that it is going to provide value for them as well in terms of accessibility, and to show the regulators that this is something that's secure, that might take some time, but it might be faster than we might think, because we're trying to keep in constant coordination with them. And hopefully for us in the Philippines, for example, if we find out that there are more companies that want to become ESG compliant, if there are more regulators that actually want to track the ESG compliance of these different firms, then it might actually be a lot sooner than we think.
Thanks, Ram. Thanks, Mayor and Xiu Qi. Yep. To conclude and also to sum up with some of my additional thoughts, I totally echo whatever you have just mentioned, and also to add in a point that it is really sooner than it's coming, not so far out. Okay, I really think that it's going to be sooner than what people may expect, because I do see a lot of collaboration in this space. Okay, so coming from the technology perspective, I do see a lot of collaboration between different banks, and that's really heartening. And this is something that we see in this project. I mean, noting that we have really only been speaking with each other for a period of about 2 months, and yet we are able to come together with something like a case study that we can further build upon later. So that really encourages me. Okay, and of course, as a tech company, we are also mindful that we have also seen from the general macro economic trends of ESG, and of course even from the regulators, noting that we are part of the Singapore FinTech Festival this week. There's been a lot of news and announcements, and even MAS chief yesterday, okay, was talking about a lot about green fintech. So I do see there's a lot of impetus and a lot of momentum here. Okay, with the nature of collaboration between multiple institutions, I do think that it's not that far off. Yeah, so hoping that, okay, as a summary, as we have collaborated on this use case together, we are also looking forward to have more collaborators out there who might be watching us today, okay, to also come and reach out, and maybe we can have a chat about how we can move this forward together or into the next phases. Any last thoughts from any of you? Mayor, Xiu Qi, Ram? Cool. Cool. In that case, we've run out of time, but it's been a very interesting session as always. I always enjoyed these sessions with friends like yourselves. Okay, and so I hope that all of our audience also had a fruitful session as I have done. Okay, and in that case, we'll just end this session today right now. Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks, Siu Qi. Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Ram.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank
Bye.
you.